The Courageous Leap, Finding Freedom on the Other Side of Fear. Have you ever stood at the edge of something terrifying and thought, I can't possibly do this? That moment when your heart pounds so hard, you can feel it in your fingertips. When your mind races with all the ways things could go catastrophically wrong. And yet, something deeper calls you forward. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Qiana Turner, whose journey embodies what happens when we answer that call despite our fears. Qiana isn't just an entrepreneur, she's a visionary who has fundamentally transformed how Black women approach business ownership and personal fulfillment. Her courage in the face of uncertainty has created ripples that have touched countless lives, showing us all what's possible when we refuse to let fear have the final word. Her story illuminates a truth many of us struggle to accept, that our greatest transformations often begin precisely when we feel least prepared. And isn't that just the universe's most inconvenient timing? The path to meaningful change is rarely comfortable. It's messy, uncertain, sometimes downright terrifying. But as I've learned from Chiana and other remarkable Black women entrepreneurs, that discomfort isn't a warning sign to retreat. It's often the very indicator that we're on the threshold of something extraordinary. Today, I want to explore what happens when we feel the fear and do it anyway. Think about the last time fear stopped you from taking action. Maybe it was launching that business, having that difficult conversation, or making that career pivot. We've all been there, frozen at the crossroads between what's familiar and what could be. The human brain is quite remarkable at painting detailed disaster scenarios, isn't it? Mine can conjure up at least 12 ways something will go terribly wrong before I've even finished my morning coffee. But what if I told you that the most successful people aren't those who never feel afraid? They're the ones who've developed the muscle to move forward despite their fears. They've learned to recognize fear not as a stop sign, but as a flashing yellow light. Proceed with awareness. When Chiana faced her own crossroads after being laid off, she didn't have all the answers. What she had was something more powerful, a sense of purpose that outweighed her fear, that willingness to leap before having everything figured out is what separates those who merely dream from those who transform their realities. Let me share what I've learned from some extraordinary women who embody this principle. Tiffany Dufu's story particularly resonates with this idea of moving through fear. As a Black woman entrepreneur, Tiffany found herself caught in the exhausting cycle so many of us know too well, trying to excel professionally while maintaining impossible personal standards. The fear of dropping any ball kept her perpetually overwhelmed. Her breakthrough came not from conquering that fear, but from challenging its premise. What if success didn't require perfection in every area? What if instead it meant having the courage to prioritize what truly mattered? This revelation led Tiffany to develop her philosophy of dropping the ball, intentionally letting go of certain expectations to create space for what genuinely aligned with her values and well being. It wasn't about doing less, it was about doing what mattered more. The results were transformative. Not only did she author a best selling book and build an influential platform for women leaders, but she also became a powerful advocate for redefining success beyond societal expectations. Her message has reached thousands globally, helping Black women entrepreneurs break free from limiting beliefs about what it means to be successful. But here's what's most powerful about Tiffany's journey: her impact didn't come from waiting until she felt completely ready or had eliminated all her fears. It came from taking that first step despite them. Sometimes the universe doesn't send us an engraved invitation to change our lives. It sends us a pink slip and expects us to figure it out. This pattern repeats in the story of Kim Wilhunt, whose entrepreneurial path shows how taking courageous action can create ripples far beyond personal success. Kim faced barriers that many Black women founders encounter: limited access to capital, restricted networks, and systemic biases that can make entrepreneurship feel like scaling a mountain in roller skates. The fear of failure wasn't just personal, it carried the weight of representation. When you're often the only one in the room, there's this unspoken pressure that your success or failure somehow reflects on everyone who looks like you. That's a heavy backpack to carry up the mountain of entrepreneurship. But rather than waiting for perfect conditions, Kim leveraged community support systems and refused to be deterred by rejection. She recognized entrepreneurship as both necessity and calling, particularly after experiencing a layoff herself. What happened next demonstrates the multiplier effect of courage. Her businesses didn't just succeed, they created jobs, mentorship opportunities, and economic upliftment within communities that needed them most. Her leadership inspired other aspiring entrepreneurs facing similar circumstances, showing that boldness amid uncertainty creates transformation at every level. Kim's story mirrors what Qiana discovered in her own journey: that entrepreneurship driven by purpose becomes a vehicle not just for personal advancement, but for community empowerment. When we move through our fear toward our purpose, we unknowingly create permission slips for others to do the same. This ripple effect became even more evident at a recent Pink Parachute Diaries live event, where Black professionals at various stages of their entrepreneurial journeys gathered for storytelling, networking, and inspiration. Many attendees arrived feeling isolated or fearful about starting new ventures. The lack of representation and mentorship had left them questioning whether their dreams were viable. But something powerful happened in that space where vulnerability was encouraged and speakers shared candid accounts of overcoming doubt through faith driven action. One woman stood up and said, "I've been sitting on my business idea for 3 years because I was afraid no one would take me seriously." By the end of the event, she had 5 potential collaborators and a mentor offering to help her launch within 90 days. That's the alchemy that happens when we bring our fears into the light together. Attendees left with more than just practical strategies. They left with a community. The connections formed that day created a support system where more Black professionals could feel empowered rather than alone in taking leaps toward their dreams. This is the beautiful paradox of courage. When we individually choose to move through our fears, we create collective possibility. Our actions become permission slips for others to pursue their own callings. But let's be honest, knowing this intellectually doesn't make it easier emotionally. The fear doesn't magically disappear just because we understand its purpose. I wish I could tell you there's some secret technique that makes leaping into the unknown feel comfortable. There isn't. It's uncomfortable every single time. So, how do we practically build this muscle of moving forward despite our fears? First, we must recognize that uncertainty isn't the enemy of progress, it's the prerequisite. The most meaningful journeys rarely come with detailed maps. They require us to trust the process even when we can't see the outcome. If you're waiting for complete certainty before taking action, you'll be waiting forever. Certainty is largely an illusion anyway. Ask anyone who thought they had job security right before a layoff. Chiana's approach teaches us that faith isn't about having perfect clarity, it's about having enough trust to take the next step. It's about believing that purpose will guide you, even when the path isn't fully illuminated. Sometimes you just need enough light for the step you're on, not the entire staircase. Second, we need to redefine success on our own terms. The traditional markers of achievement, titles, income, status, often keep us playing small because they're rooted in external validation rather than internal alignment. True success isn't just about financial gains or recognition. It's about creating work that honors your values, well being, and spiritual calling. It's about building something that feels meaningful even on the hardest days. It's about being able to look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back at you. For Black women entrepreneurs, especially, this redefinition is revolutionary. In a world that often hands out pink slips while underperforming counterparts receive golden parachutes, choosing to define success for yourself becomes an act of resistance and reclamation. It's saying, I will not let systems that weren't built for me determine my worth or my path. Third, we must embrace action over perfection. Progress happens not when conditions are ideal, but when we move despite our doubts. That first imperfect step often reveals possibilities we couldn't have imagined while standing still. As one attendee at our live event put it, I realized I'd been waiting to feel ready, but ready isn't a feeling, it's a decision. That insight changed everything for her. Within weeks, she had launched the business she'd been conceptualizing for years. Not because the fear disappeared, but because she stopped giving it veto power over her dreams. This brings me to perhaps the most important lesson from these remarkable women. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of purpose that's greater than fear. When your why is strong enough, it pulls you forward even when your fears are screaming for you to retreat. It becomes the counterweight that tips the scale toward action. For Qiana, that purpose was clear. Her entrepreneurial journey wasn't just about creating financial independence, it was about building something that aligned with her deepest values and created opportunities for others. That clarity of purpose became the bridge across her fears. The same was true for Tiffany Dufu, whose commitment to empowering women leaders gave her the courage to challenge perfectionist standards. And for Kim Wilhunt, whose vision for community transformation propelled her past barriers that might have otherwise seemed insurmountable. Their stories remind us that courage isn't a personality trait some people are born with and others aren't. It's a muscle we all can develop through consistent practice by taking small risks that gradually expand our comfort zones. So here's my challenge to you today. What would you do if you weren't afraid? What dream have you been shelving because the thought of failure feels too overwhelming? What conversation have you been avoiding because it might be uncomfortable? Now, what if the cost of not acting is greater than the cost of trying and failing? What if your unrealized potential is the highest price you could pay? I want you to identify one area in your life where fear is holding you back. Then commit to taking one concrete step forward this week, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite not feeling fully ready. Because here's what I know for sure after speaking with these incredible women. On the other side of that fear is not just growth waiting to happen, it's freedom. It's the liberation that comes from knowing you are bigger than your fears. It's the joy of discovering capabilities you never knew you had until you were forced to find them. The world doesn't just need your gifts and your vision, it needs your courage. It needs the ripple effect that happens when one person refuses to let fear have the final say. So feel the fear, acknowledge it, thank it for trying to protect you, and then do it anyway. Because the question isn't whether you'll face fear on your journey, you will. The question is, when you do, will you let it be the thing that stops you or the thing that shows you how unstoppable you truly are? The choice is yours, and I believe in what you'll choose.